Hello, it's Manchester Airport outside Terminal 3, which is a terminal I've not been terribly complimentary about in previous videos. This is another trip to London Heathrow. You might think, Mark, you have done this before, and that's true, but today we're riding up to Heathrow on a British Airways Airbus A319. It's an aircraft in the last few days, last few hours maybe of operation, due to have its life with British Airways brought to a close a couple of days after this video's filmed and made and heading off to St Athan for scrap. So join me as we have a look at one of the British Airways Airbus A319s that's been flying for 24 years and is just about to meet its maker.
Traveling the world on planes, trains, trams, and more. Join Mark Hopwood as he shows you some of the great journeys he's made. Let's travel to a whole variety of destinations. Remember to drop your comment below, like and subscribe, turn on the notification button, and never miss a video.
So here we are at Manchester Airport. Gosh, I was getting a little bit excited there, wasn't I, about the last potential journey on Golf Echo Uniform Oscar Alpha. Actually, the aircraft survived in traffic for 28 days after I made that video. That was on the morning of the 26th of March, and the aircraft flew off to its demise on the 25th of April. Well, the delights of Terminal 3 at Manchester, every single one of those self-service check-in machines was out of order, so I had to queue up to get my splendid bit of flimsy paper from the check-in agent, which seemed to take ages, especially as I was only flying domestically. There's my flight look at 7:50, gate 147. I thought I would pop up to the escape lounge despite the best efforts of the lifts in Terminal 3. I really don't know why I bothered. It's a pretty poor lounge, and I'm reminded of that each time I do call in. And actually I didn't have very long on this occasion, and a whole load of Ryanair passengers who bought lounge access were queuing up, being very slowly processed, so it wasn't a great experience in the end, but nonetheless an opportunity to grab a few bits of refreshment. Now, before we fly up to London Heathrow on that aircraft, I'm going to feature here on Mark's Trains, Planes and Trams, a video produced by E-Cube, who are the organisation who ultimately have taken delivery of Echo Uniform Oscar Alpha. But here's a video they made of their previous acquisition, Golf Mike India Delta Sierra, which had flown in from London Heathrow. The aircraft had a tug attached, was dragged into their maintenance area, and they show us the process of decommissioning the aircraft and gradually working through a number of components. You can see here the fuel being removed, the engines being prepared for removal from the aircraft frame, and a lot of work goes into this. It's not the type of activity you'd necessarily expect to see at a airport or aircraft scrap yard. It's more akin to a maintenance activity, but the engines, the nacelles, the flaps, the APU are all to be reused within the British Airways fleet, and this is part of the program that British Airways have as they cooperate with E-Cube on this program to decommission, recycle and scrap what's left of their Airbus A319s, 320s and 321s as they remove the oldest members of the fleet. So they weigh the aircraft. Eventually, having removed those components, they take the aircraft to a separate part of their facility and they start the process of removing parts of the body and scrapping the aircraft. But it's broken down into over 500 separate components. They describe here how they log and photograph each component at each stage. You can see various parts of the aircraft control systems there, Of course, some of these components go back into the aviation industry, but some of them are sold to enthusiasts who buy these items from the website, and many of you perhaps watching this video will have purchased such items yourself, as the undercarriage being carefully removed, and you can see in some of the footage the windows beginning to be cut out of the body shell. And what E-Cube and British Airways are trying to do, of course, with this feature is show how the process of taking an aircraft out of traffic is actually done in a very environmentally friendly way. They're showing how a large chunk of the components get recycled and are used again. Items are sold, relatively little of the aircraft ends up being scrapped, although you'll see at the end of this film some of it does indeed end up that way. And here you can see an aircraft window being prepared for presentation and for sale. The cockpit is cut off, and that is also prepared for sale, and those are the products that are sold with the aircraft registration attached. But there's not much left now that's going to be recycled. The aircraft is broken down and cut up into tiny bits, which are then loaded into skips and removed for some recycling, but also some disposal. So E-Cube have done a full report on that. You can see their website address if that is of interest to you. They're cooperating with other parts of the supply chain and of course with British Airways. But it's an interesting video, and it's interesting to reflect on what's happening to these aircraft as they reach the end of their life. Well, here's the journey that Echo Uniform Oscar Alpha took. London Heathrow, 09 right departure, 180 degree turn out over Western England, the Bristol Channel, South Wales, and then approaching St Athan, quite tight turn over the sea to land from the west, and then taxiing in for its final preparations for the end of its life. Well, here's the aircraft in slightly happier days a month before, as I was getting ready to board for that 7:50 flight to London Heathrow. I was the last passenger. That friendly chap with the HV jacket offered to take my photograph, and there we are. That's the product of that. A few photos of me posing by the engine for the last few weeks of Echo Uniform Oscar Alpha's life. The cabin crew were getting slightly concerned at this stage, looking out to see why I hadn't boarded the aircraft, why I was posing for photographs.
So welcome aboard this British Airways 319. It's Golf Echo Uniform Oscar Alpha. We're on a flight up to London Heathrow. It's the last few days of this aircraft's existence in the British Airways fleet. Certificate expires, I think, at the end of March. It's due to fly to St Athan in South Wales to be scrapped and parted out. So last couple of days flying. Aircraft not in bad condition actually. Manchester to London Heathrow. We're heading down to Heathrow. Bovingdon arrival, runway 27 right. Bit of fog here at Manchester. Not too foggy in London, so let's see how we get on, and let's see how the British Airways service looks in Club Europe on a domestic flight.
This British Airways operated flight to London Heathrow. Hopefully, just looking out the window, the fog that I noticed this morning on the way into the airport lifting gently. And so no delays to our departure with that in mind. Taking off from the southerly runways, we do have to cross the runway. It should take a few minutes to do that. Taking off to the west towards Sutton Park, and turning back down to North Stowe, just to the west of Birmingham, on our way to Heathrow. There's the 3 minutes flight time. Maybe on the flight deck, Senior First Officer Sam Brown, just organising our departure. Looking out for your comfort and your safety in the cabin. In charge of the cabin crew is Maria Gardner. Maria and the crew very shortly going to give you a safety demonstration. But just ask for a few minutes of your time for that, please. And then throughout the flight, if you could keep your signals fastened, just in case we come across some turbulence en route.
Quite a punctual pushback then for the aircraft, but disappointing conditions at Manchester. It had been more foggy than this, but it was slowly lifting. You can see the sun in my video just beginning to sort of burn through the fog, the mist, the clouds, but not great flying conditions, and very difficult really to see what else is going on around the airfield, and not particularly good views on departure. The thing about fog, of course, is that it sits very low, so once you climb out after takeoff, you soon climb through the cloud and you do get some of those great views. Speaking of great views, maybe a bacon roll. British Airways are always messing about with their breakfast menu. They haven't quite grasped that, you know, the traditional breakfast tray is what many people would be happy with, but a bacon roll on a flight from Manchester is probably not too bad an option. Coffee was served for me as well, and this is one of the great things about British Airways on the Manchester-London route. You know, compared to say what would go on in North America in first class, you do get a decent product.
North of Heathrow, and about to start our approach. We've got just 10 minutes flying time to go. So no delays, should be touching down about 10 minutes ahead of schedule. Our approach today takes us from where we are now, directly north of Heathrow, towards the City of London. And then turning right back towards Heathrow itself should give you some great views of the city itself. The River Thames on its way to Heathrow. 10 minutes to go. Thank you.
Well, for me, those great views of London that the captain promised us never quite materialised. We retained a bit of cloud cover throughout our approach over London. Some views, but not really the classic London views without cloud cover that you'd like. The cloud cover disappeared as we got over West London to a greater extent, and some slightly better views as we made our way down towards the runway at London Heathrow. Well, this flight, of course, was wrapping up my association with Golf Echo Uniform Oscar Alpha, member of the Airbus A319 fleet that had entered British Airways service 24 years previously, I think, coming in to replace Boeing 737s and Boeing 757s that were operating at the time out of London Heathrow. And our approach into Heathrow lined us up with a runway 27 right and a short taxi into Terminal 5. But Flight Focus 365, of course, keeps its BDI on runway 27 right, so there was some footage of our arrival. I'm grateful to Flight Focus 365, and it's great to be able to show this footage alongside mine as we approach for our landing at London Heathrow.
A very warm welcome to London Heathrow Terminal 5, the home of British Airways. Please remain seated with your seatbelt securely fastened until the fasten seatbelt signs have been switched off. When it's safe to do so, please take care when opening overhead lockers and signage are moved around to could fall out to cause injury. You may now make and receive calls as well as use all data services on your handheld electronic devices. Before leaving us today, please check that you have all personal belongings with you, including anything that you may have placed in your seat area. If your journey ends here at Heathrow, please follow the yellow signs for arrivals, and if you have any connecting flights with us today, please follow the purple signs for flight connections.
Cabin crew, thank you. Doors to manual and cross-track.
So ahead of schedule on stand here, and we've got an air bridge coming up to front left-hand door, so we'll be able to disembark straight away. And we're at the very end of Terminal 5 main building, so the domestic stands and arrivals. If you are looking for transport links, they're out to the right-hand side in front of the building, about 100 metres away. And those of you connecting, just follow the purple signs for the flight connection centre. So I hope you enjoyed the flight, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
And a quick look around the cabin. Golf Echo uniform Oscar Alpha, not in bad condition actually. There are certainly worse Airbus 319s in the fleet than this one in terms of their condition, but I'm off my last trip on that aircraft, heading off into Terminal 5. Hope you enjoyed that. I've looked at the scrapping program for 319s and 320s, what happens to those aircraft. A short flight from Manchester. I'll see you again very soon.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and click the notification button so you don't miss any of the great trips Mark has coming your way on this YouTube channel.